Hi, everyone, and welcome to A Seasoned Life. This is an evolutionary astrology course that deals with the primary basics of how to interpret a chart, how to interpret your own chart. So, we're going to navigate through all of the signs, all of the planets, and all of the houses, which is a lot. But when we break it down in these small little bites, by the time you're done, you're going to have this beautiful array of flavors and colors in your food, and you're going to know when you are hearing the right type of astrological information and when you know it's totally bogus, right? So, in this foundational course, what you'll get out of it is being able to interpret, being able to listen to transit readings and know what the astrologer is saying, knowing exactly where Aries is in your chart and where Mars will fall, and what sign opens your first house or what's your ascendant. We're going to go over that today. And for the rest of the following weeks, thank you for being here and investing your time in becoming a seasoned astrologer. Uh, a little backstory. When I started, I was self-taught. I really loved astrology from the moment that I was forced to kind of learn about it. In the seventh grade, I had this really amazing science teacher who wanted us to know about the planets. And she thought a fun way of us connecting was to go to the library, look up our astrology sign, and write our own horoscope for our life. And it was at that point in time that I realized that I was a researcher, that I loved to go to the library and look at things and analyze them and see if they fit for my life. So fast forward, I'm in high school and I'm on the newspaper. I want to say team, but it's not a team, it's a group. And we're writing the school newspaper. And I didn't know what I wanted to write, but astrology just popped into my head. Did I know astrology? Absolutely not. But what I did write was things that I remembered about the people that I chilled with. And I knew their birthdays. I knew what their signs were. I knew that I loved Leos and I loved Scorpios, even though our relationships sometimes were kind of volatile. So I found myself really enjoying it, but I didn't realize it was a real job. I didn't realize that you could make money doing this. I'd never seen a real astrology book like they have out today. So now I'm in a place where I have studied with a real teacher, and I have incorporated those teachings over the past 5 years of being under mentorship and having homework and, basically writing dissertations about these planets and the interplays in birth charts and in life. And it's really brought me to this place of deeper understanding. But I think what I understand more is how it affects life because I've lived through it. So what you're not going to get in here is a bunch of keywords that I hope that you memorize. What I hope is that you connect with the inner Aries of you, the inner Mars and the inner first house. I want you to see and feel through some of the language that I use, how that relates to you. You may already know your chart. You may already know a lot about yourself in this way, but I think that maybe we could go deeper with this information, and that's what evolutionary astrology brings, is a deeper, more psychological, more logical way of looking at our life and figuring out different strategies for getting through the hard times. So here we are. Now, in this class, we're discussing the symbol of Aries, what it means. Aries is the element of fire and represents the horned ram. And in the chart, when we're thinking about planets, houses, and signs, they're not the same thing. They're all a little different in the way that they work. But the reason why astrologers like to bring it in, or evolutionary astrologers like to bring it in more than other lineages, is because we really want to relay the stronger messages that keep coming through as repeated patterns. So you'll see these patterns when I talk about Aries, when I talk about Mars and the first house. They're all doing something a little differently, but the way that it's enacted and the way that it's lived in life is just a little different. So when we're thinking about Aries, the archetype, it's the how in the birth chart. So if you have Aries in the first house, then that is how you're going to live your first house. And that is the energy that you're going to apply to the first house. And when we think about Mars, which is the natural ruler of Aries, which is why it's important that these things are brought together, right? It is our planet of defense, war, will, and really enacts the what we're doing. So the planet is the what, and the sign is the how. You'll hear this more and more as we go out, because I like to repeat these types of things so that it sticks. Because when it comes to chart interpretation, we can get really lost in making sure that everything is meeting and making sure that you're getting your synthesis correct. So don't feel bad if you are, having a hard time wrapping your brain around this. We're going to apply it. So the first house is, the planet that signifies this first house is Mars. And then the sign that's associated with it naturally is Aries. And so this is the area of life that deals with our identity, knowing who we are, and represents the where in our life. So if you think about Mars in the sign of Aries in the first house, you are, essentially trying to boil it down to how would that really make a person feel? How would they live their lives? So in this short example, it would be someone who is very strong-willed and who is determined to learn who they are in this life, because they're dealing with the identity in the first house. They have Mars there, which is a super important factor. It's something that they're rising to in their life, something that's new that they're birthing. And it is a fiery, igniting kind of energy where, there is a lot of recreating oneself. So that's just like one example of kind of how we're going to start maneuvering things, but never fear, we're going to go slow. So those were the class intentions, just kind of bringing more awareness to Aries, Mars, and the first house. So don't get too frazzled, because, there are things that we're going to use in this class in terms of terminology, but these things are going to be expanded upon. So look forward to those here in the future. We're going to first work on the basics, which is the main terminology that we're trying to use. We're trying to understand how we see this language in our normal day-to-day life. If you're watching a movie, can you tell if this character is a Libra by the way that they're acting, by the way that they move their body, by the way that they eat? So, these are things that we're trying to cue into our awareness by using these words and examples and analogies so that you can start to decipher for yourself. So we're going to talk about the element of fire. We're going to talk about how there's a cardinal aspect to this sign and the house. And we're going to talk about Aries here. So the element of fire really brings a bold level of passion and courage. So when it comes to fire, we're talking about Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. All three of these are oriented towards a really expansive creative life, very dynamic, very action-driven, very dewy. A lot of times they can be pretty upbeat and really want to squeeze the life out of life. They want to enjoy, they want to extend play. They're really like the party makers of the wheel. They're able to really kind of solve their problems and kind of like really get things going in terms of, I have a dream and I want to fulfill it kind of idea. So with the element of fire, if you've got a lot of fire in your birth chart, you might have these types of qualities. Now, there's a mode. A mode is an operation, a mode in which we operate. And there are three different modes in the astrological lineage. Well, just in astrology, period, it doesn't matter which lineage. We all look to these words and symbols. And when we're talking about cardinality, we're talking about the mode of operation that controls the result of our actions. Now, this is my interpretation. So when I think of the result of our actions, the result of our emotions, the result of our relationships, and the result of our authority, it kind of gives this flavor of cardinality is really kind of this final result, kind of like this test of seeing where we are in that process. And it's really brought to the forefront, whether someone brings it to our attention or not. So cardinality really kind of grounds us in the action that we take, the emotion that we elicit, the relationships that we develop, and the authority that we take or the authority that we have in our own lives. And that'll be kind of explained more a little later, but that's kind of what cardinal represents. New, testy, we'll see, including other people. And when we think of the cardinal signs, just as a tidbit, they kind of are the backbone of the birth chart. They are, the cardinal cross on a chart, which we'll go into later, is kind of this anchoring point. And if you have planets there, it's really important to focus on those because they're absolutely what you came here to work on and what mode of operation you're really trying to clarify. So again, the ram is the symbol for Aries. And in a nutshell, the symbol is an animal. It's got a thick body, it's got muscular legs, it's got broad shoulders, and will generally have this big head with huge horns. And so it's like it's got its own built-in defense system, like it's got its own weapons right up on the head. And astrologically, Aries also represents the head, the top of the head. So if we're just thinking about in simple terms, birth, childbirth, generally, a child will be born head first. On the rare occasions or the very sad occasions in which that's flipped, it's not a really great situation, and can create a whole host of issues and ways that survival needs to be enacted. But in a natural sense, if everything goes well, baby comes down head first. And that is the initiation of one's life. When that head comes through the canal, that is verifying to the world that you are a human being. You have made it. You have survived being in your mother's body for that long. And now you're going to come out and you're going to survive the new terrain, which is this life. You're living a defenseless life. You're this tiny child who depends on their mother so greatly. And over time, you're going to have to learn how to separate from that mother and become strong and to develop your horns and to have a level of defense for yourself. So it's this really beautiful evolutionary thought process of just how we even incarnate in this lifetime, very simply, very naturally. And astrology represents that too. So when we think of the head, when we think about how precious it is, the skull, the hair follicles, the scalp, all of those things are really important to understanding, our senses. A lot of times the hair raises on these areas because we know that, danger is ensuing, or we need to engage our fight or flight response. So that's where all of that lives as well, is in this archetype, in this fire, in the symbol of the ram. So let's move forward to talk more about fire in general. So Aries, Leo, Sag. The fire keywords, if you want to consider keywords as just a way of understanding the general sense of what this archetype can bring. It's not it's not it's not something that you have to specifically live by, but you're going to see throughout that these words can be interchanged. You can find synonyms. I mean, the language can be expanded. But when I think about fire for myself, it's very simple because I am a fire sign. It's wild, it's independent, it's creative, it's driven, action oriented, it's bright, it's bubbly, it's energetic, it's playful, it wants life to continue. And so with fire, it's always trying to figure out how to make that fire continue to go, even in our absence. So, a fire sign is direct and to the point. They need fuel to get through any challenge. So it really takes a lot of gusto. It takes a lot of calories. It takes a lot of strength in order to propel yourself forward to get through a challenge, right? Like, how many times have we really been in the thick of things, and when we get out of it and we start to go back over what's happened in our life, it doesn't actually feel so bad. In fact, what we remember is like, oh, we have the stamina to deal with all of these other things, or that challenge, transformed into something else. So challenges in our life, no matter what we are trying to avoid, and fire always makes sure that we are um, figuring that part out, participating in life in that way. So we did talk about what lasts beyond you. How do you make something that lasts beyond you? That generally means making something. So in its simplest terms, back in the day, during the baby boomer time or the silent generation, having a child was the greatest form of creative output you could have. Because that child is going to live on without you. They're going to carry the legacies and traditions and things that you've taught them. And they're going to live on, and they're going to bury you in the ground, hopefully, right? So that's like one way. But if we think about leaders, if we think about people who have really influenced and brought this like a positive vibe to the world, um, it's really people who are able to create things that are of material. So, they have this brilliant idea, comes through the head. Oh my God, I feel some way about a thing, and I've got to make something in order to show that I care, to put my emotion in it, to see it in physical form. And then that physical form, it becomes something, becomes a part of me. And I'm able to give that to someone. I'm able to sell it. I can put it on my wall and see my value. But creative output is absolutely needed when fire is concerned. And, with that, when you are creating, when you are making something for other people, when you are trying to pour yourself into a creation, there's a level of risk. Maybe you're risking spending time with your family. Maybe you're risking being out with your friends and being part of the party life. It becomes this level of having a keen connection to yourself and wanting to share that with others on some kind of level. Now, all of the signs, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, will express that in different ways, whether they want closeness, whether they want independence, whether they want both. It's little sprinkles and seasonings, you know what I mean? But with fire, it brings the will to do what no one else will, right? I mean, you see something in the world, it pisses you off, and boom, something is ignited. I'm going to stand up for, or I'm going to retaliate, or, like there's all of these ways that we oppose something that we just don't like, that we don't feel is right. So it really forces us to be confident in what we think and feel, and to live in a way that is self-assured in some sense. Leo has the hardest time with this. They kind of need more assurance than the other fire signs, but nonetheless, we all as people need to be encouraged to move forward, especially when we are leaping from one place to the next, or really trying to embody something new. So these signs are unabashed. They don't have any shame. They're grandiose and they don't care. And that is why fire is here, is to show the rest of the zodiac how to be as free as they possibly can within the confines of our little earth zoo that we're on. So, there's this loud, boisterous strength that comes through. It's really wanting to embody sound and excitement and color all into one. But that's things that are not so positive are just, being harsh, being brash, being aloof, not seeing, not paying attention, being maybe a little too self-absorbed or cutting with our words, not considering, other people's points of view. So that kind of can be like a shadow of having too much fire in your birth chart. But all in all, this is a really self-directed, self-known, motivated element. And, when we think about a birth chart, whether you have, I'm sure most of you have looked at your birth chart before, and maybe you have discovered, which element you have the most of in your chart. What's the second element that you have the most of? When we start to break down our chart in these very small ways, fire or any of the other elements that is more accentuated, that stands out, really adds to the story of our life, whether we're a Cancer sun or a Sagittarius moon. It doesn't matter. These elemental signatures really add some flavor. So, do you have these types of feelings in your chart? Do you feel like this is something you are constantly thinking about and focused on? Well, I won't get too sidetracked because I want to talk about all kinds of ways that you could probably tap into this, depending on what year you were born. Um, but, to keep things simple, just tap into this fire. Who do you have in your life that acts like this? Who's an Aries, Leo, or Sag? Or, how do you know their placements? And is this describing them? Can you get more out of them by knowing how they act? And getting more out of them meaning more relationship, more connection, more fun. So we did previously talk about cardinal signs or cardinal houses. And so cardinal signs again are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And it will represent houses 1, 4, 7, and 10. Now, I didn't show you a picture of a chart here because I don't want to overwhelm you. But if you just think of a cross on a circle, those are these areas that are being represented. It's just a perfect cross. And it starts with Aries and ends with Capricorn, starts with house 1 and ends with 10. So this mode of operation really brings fresh awareness into our actions. It helps us see where the cracks are, where we need to maybe get a little bit more mature, maybe where we need to take our power back, or stand on our own, or maybe it's time to find a lover, or maybe it's time to let that lover go. So those are kind of some of the ideas. It emboldens us to test ourselves and to test other people, and brings a larger focus to our life. When we are no longer thinking about just the self, Aries, then we're thinking about our family and the people that raised us, Cancer. And then after a while, we want to be in relationship. We want partnerships. We want friends. We want connection with Libra. And then when we get to Capricorn, we want to live an established life. We want to be leaders of our community. We want to be morally and ethically intact. And those are the energies of Cardinal. It's really coming against all of the tests of our lives through our family, through our relationship, through our battles with ourselves, and battles with authority. So if you have heavy cardinal signatures in your birth chart, you're dealing with these themes a lot more often than most of us. So to bring in more perspective, I wanted to share ideas of polarity. So polarity basically is wherever there's an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? It means that one always indicates that there's going to be another. One doesn't exist without there being some opposite energy in the air. So when we talk about Aries, we are talking about the first house. And when we look to the other side of the fence, right over the fence, we are looking at the sign of Libra. Libra is our counterpart. They are our ally. They know us. We know them. And we get along, but we do things a little differently. And we're a little different, focused a little differently, but the genuine mentality is the same. Not mentality as we all believe the same thing, but maybe our motivations and things we're geared towards feel the same way. Maybe they're cyclical in a way. So to bring Libra into the conversation without taking away too much from Aries, Libra is the air principle. So it's bringing in this fresh new idea to the mind. And Aries acts on it because Aries is fire. So if you think about a fire, in order for a fire to grow, you need air. And that's why Libra is such an integral part of who Aries is without even having to mention. So Libra's the scales. She's justice. She's the one balancing whether something's good or bad, whether that aggressive action that came from Aries was really warranted. It is the balancer of like, are you allowed to go off on somebody, or did you really consider the other point of view? Did you put yourself in someone else's shoes to really understand where they're coming from and to act from a place of understanding and hearing instead of just pure emotion and raw initiation of an idea? So Libra is mentally driven and can be emotionally even and balanced. It takes a lot to kind of stir them up because they're thinking about things a little longer. Not much longer, but a little longer. There's some signs that take a very long time. But Libra doesn't take too long, but they need to weigh out all of their options. They need to discern and make the pros and cons list and be indecisive for a little while. They're the ones that like to bring in the opposite of what they don't have. You know, there's this great sense of like knowing that there's lack in the world, seeing that there's like this other thing that you need in order to feel complete. And so Libra will go out and make sure that that's brought to them. So they realize at a fundamental level that some of their needs and resources will flourish better if they have connections with other people. And that's what Libra wants to remind Aries is, hey, not everything needs to be by yourself. You know, yes, a lot of ideas and things are self-initiated, but in order to keep things going and to not burn yourself out, the other is needed in order to bring a sense of balance to one's life. So there's a level of being of a receiving nature, you know, just kind of being the one with open arms to give the hug to the Aries. It's fair. It can be balanced at times and diplomatic, and it can take sides. So, you know, loyalty, is kind of wishy-washy when it comes to Libra, which Aries does not favor at all. And Libra's really bringing a mirrored existence into life. They go out, they meet this opposite that they really want to have. And then over time, they realize we're actually kind of similar. And that's kind of annoying. And so there's this kind of, again, this need or search for, filling that void. And so there's like this need to discover with Libra. Their opposite is independence. Their opposite is looking for something themselves and not needing the other in order to get it. But of course, that can only come after a period of being with someone and realizing that in order to become who you really want, you need to separate. You need to Aries. So, thinking about Aries again, let's bring ourselves back into Aries. So we're using the self to determine where we want to be and what we want to do in life. Whereas Libra was using others as that determiner, Aries is using just the self. They're emotional, right? They're survival oriented, they're aggressive and assertive and passionate. Not to say that Libras aren't this way, but that's not their mode. That is not the way that they operate on a normal basis, right? Aries people are driven to fight another day. Venusian people wake up just feeling blessed that God gave them a new day to spend. That's kind of the energies here. It's fighting, and one is just being grateful passively that it came and it brought something of fruition. It's resourceful, Aries. It's brazen and almost unstoppable. It's fighting to live another day. It's being defiant. It's lacking others or not following leaders, not following dogma. And it's bringing something to life that like helps you reinvent yourself. And when you are trying to bring more of the Libra and balance of this Aries energy, it is to be in relationship with other people. Okay, now I've been this entrepreneur for all this time, and or maybe a solopreneur, let's say that, you've just been working by yourself, and then all of a sudden this business booms and you need more power, you need more energy, you need more bodies. And so you incorporate Libra and you put out a job posting and you say, hey, I need help with my business and I'm going to trade with you. And that trade is going to be money or whatever the case is. So that is the polarity of the signs. Now, there is polarity in planets as well. So when we think of Mars and its connection to Aries, we also have to consider that there is a Venusian quality. There's Venus on the other side of this Mars that's trying to bring some balance. So if we're thinking about war with Mars, we're thinking about love with Venus. You know what I mean? We're bringing that counterpart. So the counterpart of Mars is bringing a sense of value to one's life and bringing some inner worth and just some outward expressions that people think that you're useful and have something to offer, right? They're searching for something from you. You're not having to put out so much work. It's people needing what you have instead of having to go find them. It's allowing things to come to you. It's learning how to treat your wealth, how you normally hold on to money is how this can be expressed through Venus. And it can be how you view yourself. So depending on where you have Venus and what sign it is, maybe it's how you view your body. Maybe it's how you view yourself in relationship, It can be your perspective on relationships in general. I have a teacher that mentions that it's the relationship that you witnessed of your parents. I don't know I haven't done as much research on that, but I don't know. See if it feels true for you. I have Venus in Cancer, and it's in the 12th house, and so there were periods of time where my parents were not together. They needed separation from each other. Life was just too chaotic, and I ended up living with my mom a lot of the time and being nurtured and cared for by her. And we were always trying to figure out a sense of safety and a good home. That was a lot of the things that we were focused on when I was a kid. And so, you know, maybe that could be true in the relationship that I saw with my mother and father. Um, but I don't know. I have to investigate it a little more. Venus is ruled by two signs, and that is Taurus and Libra. We're not going to talk about them much today, but there are quite a few planets in our solar system that we have attributed to two signs, and it usually is one sign is doing something and the other sign is completing something of that. So we'll talk about those things later, but essentially Venus is complex. It takes a lot of inner reflection, and it takes a lot of reflection of what you see from the outer world in order to make proper judgments. So there's a lot with Venus. With Mars, it's pretty simple. It's to defend, it's to guard, it's to protect, it's to become autonomous and independent. It's not looking or caring about anybody right now. It's instinctual. It's following emotions, wanting to find the drive and the passion in life. They're looking for fuel. They're looking for more. They're looking to get the job done. They're the ones who are the activists. They're the ones that are going to put up a fight. They're going to be the warriors of the pack. They're going to initiate a huge sense of power within themselves by taking back. And how do you take back? You stick up for what you believe in, right? You don't follow what other people are telling you to do. You follow your own compass. So Mars, strong Aries, strong first house, you know who you are, and no one's going to tell you any differently. And that's what this Mars is trying to get us to understand, is where in the chart does Mars fall for you, and how are you standing up and fighting, right? Where in your birth chart are you putting up defenses? Are you needing more protections and security? Security meaning like, do you need an entourage of good healers and friends, or do you need resources, or what is that for you? And you'll find that in the area of your chart that Mars falls in. And you'll also see too, like, what your daily battle in life is, and how that affects you. For me, my daily battle is creativity, because I have Mars in Leo. And so I'm constantly thinking about how can I keep the creativity going despite having a family, a beautiful family, having children, having grandchildren. How do I make time for the self? How do I make sure that that still lives inside of me? So where's your Mars? It's not waiting for life to happen. It's having the drive to live the life and not being caught off guard. So that is the polarity between Mars and Venus. It's one's receiving, one's taking, one's fighting, one's loving, and they're working interchangeably whether you have these configurations in your chart or not. So now we're going to talk about the houses. So the houses are the where of the chart. What areas in your life will be attributed to some of these energies. So when we are sitting in the first house and we look over the fence, our seventh house is our neighbor. And Libra and Venus, again, she's sitting over there. She's looking at us and she's saying, hey, you're going to have to slow down. You're going to have to consider something else. And she's saying, hey, we're here to come make amends. Come break bread with me. Let's spread some peace together. Let's be business partners. It's the descendant of the chart. The seventh house is the descendant. And it's what we need, it's what we lack, and it's what we need others for. So when we look to the sign or the planets that are in the seventh house, they're really trying to bring more of what we don't have into our lives so that we feel complete. And that's not coming from a place of having to will it into Aries, into manifestation. This is, other people hearing the calling of your need, or you expressing that you have a need, which is a very hard thing for Aries to do, is to say, hey, look, I can't hold it all. Do you have resource? Can you help me? And, you know, after a while of really being connected with other people and, having this sense of lack kind of dissipate because maybe you've filled the voids, maybe you've heard the calling, and now you're providing the world with something that is really of value. And so, some of these partnerships, some of these connections that we made, they might not be fitting anymore. They might be draining or take too much or become needy. And in any sense, at some point, there becomes a breaking stage with the seventh house. So it's learning when it's time to become independent and it's time to take back some of the solidarity of our lives and to just be with ourselves for some time. But that's, of course, after healthy partnership and associating healthy needs. In the seventh house, it's our recognition that other people exist, that there is a life outside of our personal wants and needs, that the rest of the world has the same thing too, and how are we going to come together to make it happen for as many people as possible? And again, it's other-centric. So what are they doing over there? Always wondering what's happening over here. There's always this sense of wonderment and why and asking questions because the seventh house is ruled by air. And with the first house and Aries on the other side with all this fire, they're not asking no questions, they're taking names, right? They're taking what is essentially what they feel is theirs. So it's facing the battlefield. And, really like, who do you think you are in the first house? Who do you think you are? Have you ever heard that expression? Like, how does that make you feel generally? For a person like me, it makes me pissed. I'm like, excuse me? And then that's when you would rise up and be like, well, let me tell you how, and you're defending yourself. And so that type of question is very margin. It's very like, who do you think you are? And the first house is our ascendant. It's our focus in this lifetime because it's what we came here to initiate. It's a new expression of living life. Now, evolutionary astrology is the lineage that holds the language of past lives. And when we think about the first house, when we think about one being birthed into an existence, this is a new expression. And this is something that we're growing into. So our sense of personal identity is going to start here. It's, who we are at an instinctual level. And, again, what area of life are we birthing? Are we creating? Are we making more out of? And the first house is, after a while of being independent and being in survival mode and knowing that you can handle things and knowing that you can find the resources that you need, it's now time to embrace the seventh house where you need to accept others and bring them into the fold. And after having, this long bout of independence. And so there's this seesaw of action and reaction with the first house and the seventh house. So Aries, the ram, look at this physicality. It is strong, statuesque. It's not super tall, it's not gargantuan. It just is strong. Able to move quickly. It's kind of like this stout or maybe smaller in stature, but still very muscular, and able to utilize the body in really miraculous ways. Um, and I say that because, it takes a lot of intense movement, it takes a lot of strength to get the body to look this way, for it to react in that way after, repetitive movements, whether it's lifting weights or it's running for your life. So it requires a lot of energy to enact that. And it takes a lot of being able to feed the self in order to have that energy. So, Aries is constantly looking for new fuel sources so that this can continue, so that the body can be vital and that you can still run from the prey or still run for the food that you're wanting. So it's the sign that helps us create new vision for ourselves, and in particular areas of our life. So depending on where Aries falls in your birth chart, that's going to be the area of life that you're going to really take the bull by the horns. And it's going to be the area of life where you're going to desire people that are similar to you, that have like minds, so that you can build fire together. You're going to want people who are not following the status quo in that particular area. So Aries is really bringing and fighting for our individualism and having a sense of self amongst the mass of what we're going through in the world. Aries is initiation. I mean, think about in this photo in the upper left-hand corner, think about how much it would take to, firstly, you can't just walk up to the edge and then jump off, right? You have to build momentum. So that guy is going to have to go way back in order to start running, to build the speed that he needs to take that leap and to get over on the other side. And that takes a lot. It's not just this push to start button that now we are using in a car. Back in the day when, back in my day when we used a key in the ignition, there were some cars where you would really have to crank it because it took a lot to turn that engine on. It wasn't electric. It was very mechanical and steel driven, and all of the parts are requiring help from one another. And, that's the kind of car that we're thinking about. We're thinking about the clunker. We're thinking about the one that, we have to go buy extra parts for because it's no longer being made. And we're trying to keep the survival of that classic car. And so it's not easy. It's not a push to start. And, thinking about even starting a fire. Nowadays we think, oh, as long as you have a lighter, you're good to go. Some matches, there you go. But in a lot of survival situations where you're running for your life or you need to live another night, you need to go out and search for what will make fire. You need to go out in nature and figure out what two things will make this happen for you. So even starting a fire may require another person, but it also requires resources. So you can't do everything on your own, Aries, right? So it's it's taking a leap and not wasting any time to do it. It's very quick in that way. So Aries is not going to waste any time on an idea. They're going to think and act, and the rest of the things will be figured out later. Okay? It's starting the fire and taking those first steps. And then over time, in order to keep that fire going, you need Libra and the seventh house and Venus. You need resources and people in order to keep that fire going. So if you need someone to watch that fire while you go get more wood, that's the Libra function of Aries, right? It's lighting the fire under oneself. It's backing up as far as you can and then running as fast as you can so that you can develop the momentum to make up for this gap that's in life. You know, how do you get from here to there if there's no ground underneath you? You're going to have to take a leap. And that brings us to what takes no other person to do. And there's only a couple things in life that really require only us. And it's important to remember that when there's a lot of Aries in the chart or Aries placements, it's good to know when it's time to restore. It's good to know when it's time to ask for input because sometimes the burnout and or the constant going will make things start to fizzle out on you and will start to take away some of that glitter and gold. So when you're feeling that way as an independent person, as a sovereign individual who's really living a life of independence, it's good to have a sounding board. It's good to have something else reflecting back to you that life is outside. Mars, the planet of war. We've always heard of that, or the planet that rules the masculine. Um, in some analogies, this is true. This is kind of the expression in kind of the way we take things on, So Mars is, what we do with our strengths and our weaknesses, in what ways we handle crisis, being pinned against the wall, or having our will overtaken. This starts to bring up a lot of emotion when we start talking about this, huh? Starts to become real territorial. What gets us to rise or where we feel passion, anger, or any raw emotion that gets us to go and move. The Mars becomes our reason for living. Why we get up in the morning every day. Mars is the ways that you need autonomy, free agency, being able to move around in the world without asking for permission, and the permission to bring your own creations forward without anyone saying yes or no. It's separating or becoming your own. So it is a very alone kind of process. You come into this world, you come out of your mother, and you are expected to separate after time, and you're expected to live on your own and to survive. And it's a hard thing. It's a harsh kind of existence, because if we think of Mars, Mars is this planet that's supposed to not be inhabited, right? Yet we have everybody and their mom really excited about what's going on over there. And, could that be another viable option? And I don't think a lot of us are thinking that way. I think the oligarchs are thinking that way. But in any sense, this rocky planet is harsh and requires a lot of input because it doesn't have any resource as a planet in general. So that kind of brings the flavor of what Mars is kind of bringing as we're coming into there, where it's like, oh man, we're dry. We don't have a lot of this. We need to figure out how to get this and to fill that void. And then eventually I'll become strong and I can do it on my own. So, what are the reasons we fight in life? What do we fight for? Who do we fight with? What are we willing to rise to? And, Mars is giving us the energy to continue. The sign that it's in is the way that we're doing that, and the how. So I'm going to take some water because we're talking about a barren planet. And barren meaning it has no resource, it's dry, it's crumbly, it's cracky. And so that does shine down on us. So when we're talking about these energies, our bodies react. And so it's good to drink water. Okay, Aries through the houses. Now, I'm going to share a different part of my screen because I want to show you what it looks like when you have Aries in any particular house. Let's move this back a bit. Okay, so if you have Aries in the first house, you're going to be ruled by the planet Mars, and you are going to be extraordinarily energetic. You are going to use the body and the will of the mind to get you through absolutely anything. This is a configuration where, the natural houses are working in its favor because Aries begins the first house in a natural sense. So lucky you this is a really easy placement. But how unlucky sometimes is to how to always like go through the battle of life. So maybe you're always like battling other people. Maybe there's a lot of argumentative situations going on in your life, or you having to debate or defend yourself. Um, and in turn, you could actually become really great at these things, really able to stand your ground and fight for what's right, because this is what you're coming into this life really trying to understand. So if you have Aries in the second house, you're going to really be identified with finding a deep sense of self-worth, um, coming into a sense of your own identity and knowing who that is, and knowing how to use that as a resource, knowing how to use your gifts and your talents to your benefit so that you can survive another day. So, what will you create that will be food for somebody else, or be something that you can sell? Or in what way can uh, Aries, this very strong and um, determined sign, how can that really bring more security to one's life, more stability in the resources? How can one's inner life be changed with Aries in the second house? So, maybe someone here has been dealing with, you know, um, money and resources. Maybe they have struggled with food. Um, Maybe at times they even struggled having, a home. That could be something here. Um, but maybe on a deeper level, someone who's really um, battling whether they think they matter or not, or trying to find value and things to say and do in their life. Will they find what they're doing to be of value to themselves and other people? This will be a signature in which someone will need to slow down just a tad and to listen and receive a little more. So that is Aries in the second house. So if you have Aries in the third, it's really important to be in touch with um, communication and the proper use of that communication. So if we think about being defensive and we think about defending oneself and putting up protections and taking one's will back, you would assume that conversations might be a little heated, at times, and you're going to really have to battle words and the right use of them, and whether you're going to apply them in a way that's of good and not of trying to hurt someone. So Mars in the third house can be quick, can be biting, can be cutting, and you're just like, oh, you're mean. um, it's not that they are purposefully trying to be this way as an Aquarius ascendant. It's just kind of this natural way of looking at the world, and the third house is looking at the world around you, your immediate environment. And so maybe that might not feel safe for this Aries person. and they may have to be defensive in their day-to-day life as they're commuting. They might be a little more aggressive. They might honk their horn a little more, be more loud in the conference room. These types of energies are what kind of brings Aries in the third house, and what Aries in the third house can bring. When we have Aries in the fourth house, we can probably assume that there's a lot of battling in the house, battling with the family, you know, needing to separate from like the early parental guidance and dogmas. It's not, it doesn't equate. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel you. So, you know, maybe some people might associate themselves with their family quite a bit with this placement, having Aries in the fourth house. But you know, as a Capricorn ascendant, they're really coming into this life to have their own sense of authority. You know, so they're trying to develop a new sense of home, a new sense of belonging, and to kind of toss the older traditions that really don't work, no longer valid, and bringing in this fresh new look at life that may have like a greater sense of protection. Um, it may involve more emotional considerations, um, and it might be, you know, a placement for um, really finding like kindness in one's heart towards other people, um, and and also really knowing when it's time to like step back and to be with yourself and to allow yourself that space and to come out when you feel ready. So it's not always go 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 do 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 when you've got Mars in the fourth house. It's really coming into balance with you know, the right way of asserting our action in this placement. So when you have Mars in the fifth, or excuse me, when you have Aries in the fifth house, super creative, unstoppable kinds of people. Um, they are really trying to bring to manifestation like all of the things. So they might be book writers. They might be people who have huge ideologies. They've gone to all kinds of schools. They can tell you about all the different kinds of information that you really want to know about. Will they be fully grounded in that thing and only that one thing? Probably not. This is probably going to be a jack of all trades, because when there's a new sense of creation, there's a new persona, there's a new costume, there's a new ensemble. So there's something else happening at every moment of the day, and this person really needs to keep up with that. And proper function in one's life is going to be extremely important. So following a really good routine, um, so that all of the creative pursuits can be addressed, but also, you know, the family and the friends and all of the other important things that one needs in one's life besides being a creative, artistic being. So Aries in the fifth house might be quick to temper, right? Might might have a lot of started projects, but not a whole lot of finished ones. So there is a strong need to ground oneself and to find ways to complete one's thought so that people can really grab that book off of the shelves, or they can pick up that piece of art at the farmer's market. Um, it no longer needs to just stay uh, in your home. You need to take it out so that people can see that there's a need for it and want it from you. Okay, so if you have Aries in the sixth house, you know, this is really going to bring an essence of needing to find a new way of cooperating when it comes to life and work and the mundane. This person is not going to feel settled in a routine. This person's going to need something new all the time. So something that's probably fast paced. Um, this person's going to need a lot of physical activity in their lives, a lot of movement, in order for them to feel really good. And they're gonna be the leaders of the workplace if they do work in a workplace. Um, they're gonna be people who really need to focus on um, not using caffeine as the main energetic component. Um, Caffeine sensitivity can really be a big one here in the sixth house with Aries. Um, what else can I say that's of value? It's important to remember with Aries in the sixth house that not everything needs to be recreated, that some things do need to be maintained and kept the way that they are. And so maybe you need to stand up and fight for that, to fight for things to continue in the way that is most beneficial. Um, and so, you might have a lot of workplace dramas here with Aries in the sixth house. You could have aggressive bosses and people who are trying to stand above you, and you having to really stand your ground and to stand individually on your own. You might be the only one who feels a particular way, or the only one who got, triggered when that person said a thing. And so you might be the person speaking out. You might be the type of person in an environment like that really stands up for what's right. When you have Aries in the seventh house, relationships are a battle. The other can be a battle, and that's natural. There's nothing special about that. I think that we're all having that experience, but when there's Aries in the seventh house, that means that you have a Libra ascendant. And so when you come into this life and you're looking for your soulmate, you're looking for the next version of you. With the seventh house, it's like, no, it's better alone. It's better to just keep things that the way that needs to be, and I'm gonna stay the way that I am, and you're gonna stay the way you are, and we're gonna sever ties. I'm gonna go find something else. The grass is greener on the other side, and I'm gonna go take my chances. And so Aries in the seventh house can be very willing to let it all go, to put the self first. To maybe have to consider the self over others, because maybe that's been a really bad balance. This could make you a really great business partner to be with, if all of the other planetary combinations show that, like, there's a softening of aggression, there's a softening of taking power and all of those things. There's an even balanced adjustment with a partnership. But this person could really bring amazing ideas. They can bring sponsorships. They can bring money to the scene. They know how to find the people who have the things so that it can be brought into the fold. So this is a really good placement for being able to find what others need, to come up with great strategies on where people are missing things in their life. And another great one is like how to show people to take back their own lives. So with Aries in the seventh house, there's a lot to offer here, in good ways and not so good ways, just like the rest of the signs, right? So when you have Aries in the eighth house, what are you doing here? Your battlefield is, other people's money, other people's resources. Battlefield could be your taxes. You could have a hard time with debts, and trying to come to a better understanding with those things so that you're not always finding yourself in a place of needing and wanting. That at a certain level, you're reclaiming some of your resourcefulness. So with this placement, I would think that um, a person with this placement would have a hard time maybe working alone. And because there's this need and this will and this want to um, be connected with other people and to have this really deep sense of connection, but always in the back of the mind is like, I think I'm being controlled, I gotta leave. I think someone's stamping all over me, I don't like what they said, it's time for me to leave. And so there's always this level of needing to separate if things are feeling too needy, too clingy, too like they're going to be pulled underwater. And so this is a tough placement because you do have to come to grips with, not wanting for all of your existence to be alone and being skeptical of others and hurt. We're wanting to come from a place where we're recreating ourselves and we're now acting from a different emotional sense, and we're being aggressive with the way that we are approaching love and approaching life and approaching resources. So Aries in the eighth house can be a place where you are reborn again and again, where energy can come out of nowhere, where people and inspirations can turn you back on again and take you out of a depression. It's a very strong and powerful placement here. When you have Aries in the ninth house, your battlefield is higher education, it's other cultures, it's travel, it's having an open mind to tolerance in others. So when you have Aries in the ninth house, you're probably going to be very geared towards figuring out what other cultures and other people are doing. And there's a great need to educate yourself and to not just listen to what other people are telling you. You've got to go in the library and you've got to make those decisions for yourself. You've got to do the research for yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. And in fact, you can't even really be sure if what they're giving you is the truth. So, if you're getting your information from other people. So this is really where we're taking back uh, a sense of our knowledge and information and where that comes from. So if Aries is in the ninth house, like, I wonder where the grandparents are. Maybe the grandparents weren't really there. Maybe they just have always had to figure out who that new source of information or what that new source of information was going to come from that would kickstart them, that would make them feel motivated, that would make them feel like they had something to say in this world. So this is a placement for Aries in the ninth to really take charge of one's education, the continuing education of that. So it's not just like the K through 12, high school, that type of thing. It's, what are you doing from your day to day? Are you taking charge to find the right information for you? Are you teaching yourself something new? Are you learning about things that really don't involve you, but you're just learning for the sake of knowing? Um, that's a great placement here. Is to know and to be inquisitive and to care to know about new things that are happening, ways to defend oneself and to stay strong, and all of those other keywords we talked about. So when you have Aries in the 10th house, very strong placement. This is Superwoman. This is someone who is untouchable because at a certain level they've had to be forced to be that way. They're with Aries in the 10th house, people are looking to these individuals for guidance and support because what they're looking for is something new. What they're understanding and what they're seeing in this person with Aries in the 10th is, I can go my own way. I don't have to listen to what everybody else is telling me. it starts to become this thing of taking back and taking back one's authority, taking back what one thinks. So, someone with Aries in the 10th house, they're going to have a hard time following the rules. They're going to have a hard time with authority figures. Usually, there will be aggressive moments and moments where things are being said and separation needs to occur, and where leaders are falling from grace from that person's standpoint. They no longer see that person as a respectable source. Um, and this person can really experience varying levels of aggression throughout their lives and even abuse in a very public way, meaning other people might have seen this, other family members. There's this hard life experience has been influential on somebody or has been an influence in your life. And so you become this battle house. You become a person who needs to survive. And how do you use that, Aries? You be assertive with life. You lead in life. You take life by the balls, and you go forward because you can't stop. Life must go on, and there are probably other people and other things that depend on this person heavily. And so, in order to self-preserve, they're going to keep moving forward. This is a very strong cardinal signature. When you have Aries in the 11th house, let me tell you, you could never get this person into a cult. They would never be able to have the wool pulled over their eyes in that sense. These people do not follow dogma. These people will never look at a group leader and think, that's the end all be all. I'm fine to just follow whatever that person is saying. They're going to be different when it comes to social aspects, when it comes to the social structure of the world, when it comes to group dynamics. They're definitely going to see what's not right, what's overly aggressive, when someone is abusing power. This person's going to be overly aware of the imbalances when it comes to what people take, what people give. And so this person might actually lead or start their own group in a resistance or in opposition to anything that they feel is not right. They're probably going to create a sub-level of gatherings or conversations or ideas with other people that could move and create a level of activism. This person would want inclusion. They would want everybody to be included in the fold of things. So, those who are impaired with any of their senses in any way, that would not fly with the Aries in the 11th house. They would figure out how to make sure that these people are getting their essential needs met. So this is a strong placement for an activist or someone who is thinking about up-leveling or changing the social fabric, social structures on how we operate with one another. And lastly, if you have Aries in the 12th house, Aries in the 12th house it's a tricky placement. It is a placement that, okay, so let's get into the deep of it. So I explained that the ascendant was what we are coming into this life with in this lifetime. Well, the way I was taught is that the 12th house is the past life, the life that we just came out of. We popped out of the 12th house and came into the first house. So when I look at the 12th house, I think of where we've been. I think about, things that maybe we forgot that we struggled with. And so with Aries in the 12th house, I see a person who is strong-willed, who has a tremendous level of stamina and ability to really connect the dots, to really feel the current of what is going on in the world. However, this placement can be hard because in such a placement, it could make someone a little more passive. It could make them really have to think hard on whether they're going to um, take action or not. So it's like embracing Venus, but embracing Venus times two, because they're embracing Neptune as well. And just to bring that into clarity, what that really means is the ability to act or to be motivated to keep moving is not here in the 12th house. With Aries in the 12th house, um, it's very particular in what ways that this person will act. And it will have to mean a whole lot in order for this person to take their energy and put it out there. So these people might have a hard time finding energy. And they may have to go out into the world and commingle with people in order to have some revival, to be reminded that they're not just the only person roaming around in this world. Um, but on a deeper level, with Aries in the 12th house, if you're coming into this life with something, and there was a previous expression, when I look at this expression, I think, oh, this person came into this life from having a very aggressive past life, from potentially having a very masculine inspired or prominent kind of way of being. Um, there was there's a high level of achievement. This person is very much able to do what needs to be done to survive. Like that's the natural sense. But implementing more than that might take a little longer, and it might take a lot to convince this person that an action needs to be taken, because they might actually believe that things uh, come to them better than them going to the thing. And so people with these signatures are more willing to wait to see what happens. So they're really embracing that Libra here. There's a sense of neutrality with Aries in the 12th house here. So that's Aries through the signs. You guys made it. Congratulations.